Hello there. Welcome, everybody. On behalf of the IEC, the International Elite Committee, we would like to welcome you all to this course for learning about the TOPS judging. My name is Tom Cole. I'm the National Development Program Chair, and with me is Linda Thorberg, your National Technical Committee Chair. A couple little bits of housekeeping first before we get going. Make sure that you have your TOPS current text with you, and you can get that online. Go to the women's program, to the women's tab under the TOPS, and then you can access all of those documents there. Just to give you an idea of why this was brought about, the purpose of it was to provide a consistent explanation of the application of the rules. We have the text provided for you, the deductions are all there, but we thought that it was a good idea to kind of put a course together to go through scenarios of things that might happen, how you would deal with them, and how they differ, and how you deal with each situation that comes up. Please know that the deductions that are on this and that we'll be going over and that are in your documents are based on a couple of things. One, the IEC wanted a scaled down version of the elite compulsories. So that's where the TOPS routines were created from. Obviously very scaled down, but that's where it started. So then in discussing with the IEC how to interpret those rules and interpret the deductions, what kind of deductions we would use. Do we use the deductions from the development code of points? Do we use the deductions from the compulsory book? Since it's kind of a compulsory routine as the elite compulsory is. So your answer is it's a blend of both. It's to be able to give the best opportunities for the kids to be successful. So sometimes the concepts of the deductions will come from the compulsory book. Sometimes the concepts will be coming from the optional code of points. So we'll point out these as we go through it so that you can see where there are differences. The first thing that, like in the compulsories, we want you to know that the skills are worth 2/10, 4/10, or 6/10. You'll see that in the TOPS documents. There is one thing that is worth 8/10, and it is the kicks on the balance beam, but there's 4 different types of kicks: forward, sideward, backward, and a needle kick, and each, the maximum deduction for those are 2/10. And I'll go over that when we get closer to beam. Now we're going to share our screen and then go ahead and begin the PowerPoint presentation. We hope you enjoy it. Okay, and Linda will get us started.
All right. Tom did mention already that we are providing the most current information that we have. The text will be on the website at usag.org, and you want to make sure you print off a copy of that so you have that in reference. It would be good to have that while we're doing this course. To assist you, here is where you find it at USAG. Couple other general notes. The figures in the text, just like in our compulsory book, are a guideline. The text is always the final word. So you want to refer to the words in addition to the pictures. All of these routines are going to be evaluated on technique, form, execution, and body shape throughout the major elements. We've also used video clips to provide examples. They are not full routine examples. They're just little segments of the routines so that you can look at those particular elements and evaluate them. We don't do any final scores during these segments as well. You will just judge the clip and see what the deductions are. We are going to show you the clips in regular speed. Then we will show you the script for that clip, and then we will watch it again in slow. And during the slow-mo, we will probably talk through so you can point out, we can point out to you where those deductions were taken and why. So when there is a discrepancy, go back to your code of points and look at the deductions that we have there. We will let you know when the deductions we take came from the compulsory book or if they came from the optional code. They're also in the text, which we are not going to cover here. It's up to you to read it, are specific boxes, just like in the compulsory book, that have deductions that pertain just to that particular element. So you're going to want to study those as well. So we're going to go to vaulting first, and I'm going to cover just a couple things about the vault that is different. So all the athletes will have done their physical abilities, and when they get to this section where they can actually compete, they will get one vault. We will evaluate the vault based on 10 points. So the total score they could get is a 10-0 would be the max. And then we have the balk rules that we had before, that they would get 3 attempts to complete one vault. Now we have 8-year-olds, and then we have 9 and 10-year-olds, and they do different vaults. So here is the 8-year-old vault. The 8-year-olds compete just a back layout off the springboard onto a mat stack and then fall backwards to their back. We are not going to judge the vaults, but we're going to show you what it should look like. Just reminders, they need the vault runway, the hand placement mat, because it is a round off onto the board. They need the safety zone, just like in a Yurchenko. And you notice in the picture here, we do not have a picture of the safety zone or the hand placement mat, but that does have to be there. They also have to have an 8-inch skill cushion behind the mat stack. This is just like what we do for level 6 and 7. Same type of thing. So run, hurdle, round off backwards to lay out salto, land on their feet, and fall backwards to a mat stack. The mat stack is 3 8-inch mats. So some of the deductions that we would use on vaulting, a balk is each 1 point if they balk. So we don't need to go over all those. Those descriptions are in the code and in the compulsory book. There is no deduction for the coach standing between the vault or the board and the mat stack. If the coach spots them, gives assistance, it's up to 1 point, and you have to determine how much assistance that coach gave to that athlete. If you use an alternative springboard, like the little mini trampoline type, that is void, not allowed. And if they do a different vault, incorrect vault, a round off back handspring instead of a round off onto the board and a back layout, it would be void. We have dynamics, just like we do in our code of points, up to 3, direction up to 3, and vaulting without the signal of the chief judge. So those are very similar to what we're used to. So we have a couple other things in the salto phase. Because they're just doing a layout salto, we're looking for that, remember, form, technique, and height. So we want the head neutral, up to 1, feet pointed, not flexed, up to 1, legs apart, up to 2, legs bent, up to 3, height is up to 5. Those are all very similar deductions to our code of points. We want to maintain a stretched body throughout the salto. This is for the 8-year-old and the 9, 10-year-old throughout the vault, up to 3 for arch, up to 5 for pike. So landing that layout salto for the 8-year-olds is landing with feet further than hip width apart. These are all just the same type of deductions as in the code of points. Body posture on landing. If they get assistance on landing, it's 5/10. So that would be like they're going to fall crooked or something. Support with their hands. Those are just typical fall deductions. And this is going to be an example of the 8-year-old vault. And remember, all these deductions are in the text. So we really don't need to read them all to you, but just to make you aware of what is similar to what we use for the DEV program or the compulsory program. So here's an example of the vault for the 8-year-old. So she does her layout, she lands feet first, and then she falls backwards. So we'll watch it one more time just so that you can see. This is a good example. Looking for the head in line, looking for the body shape, looking for the height, the control on the landing, and we stop judging when she lands on her feet. We don't judge after that. And so here we broke it down a little bit for you. Here is her approach onto the board, and she's in a position to get ready to lift upwards. Here is her shape in the air. She's got her head back a little bit, but we're looking for the height. You notice the 3 mats there. That's the mat stack. And here she is upside down with a nice stretch position. So we're looking for that type of shape when she's rotating. And then there's her landing position, landing with her knees bent, her feet apart, her chest slightly forward, and then she will fall backward. Okay, so now we'll move to the 9 and 10-year-old vault. So their vault is different. They do have a little different equipment because they're using the vault table now. So they're going to use the vault table, and the height of the vault table, 115 to 125. The mat stack behind the table is like level 7. I'll get to that in a second. They need the hand placement mat, the safety zone, and at least 1 8-incher behind the mat stack. So they're going to do their round off, run, hurdle, round off, flick flack onto the table, and then repulsion backwards to stand on the mat stack, or they can land on their back. So what is the same here is it's just like our level 7 vault. So remember, the picture here is not showing us the hand placement mat or the safety zone, which is required. So let's talk about evaluating this vault. Refer to the most current rules for level 7 vaulting in our code of points, and all of those apply to this. So it is a little bit different than the 8-year-old, the 9, 10-year-old, but now we've been judging that for a while, so we should be fine. A quick review of some of the things that are in the level 7 deductions: body position errors, arch and pike, arms bent up to 5, too long in support is up to 5. So these are just like level 7. The angle of repulsion is up to 1 point. And remember, for the level 6, 7 vault, the angle of repulsion is judged from the hands through the hips, not the lowest body part. That's what we do at level 6, 7, which is different than what we do at compulsory level 4, 5. Height is up to 5. Rotation up to 3. We're looking for that scooping action to look like, okay, she's ready to flip a vault. And then body position maintained throughout up to 5. So those are just some of the level 7 reminders. So now we're going to watch our level 7 vault that this girl's going to show us. And notice the mat stack. Everyone should be very familiar with this whole setup. And we'll watch her one more time. Okay.
Just one point to add in: a lot of judges across the country ask me all the time, well, does she salute while she's up on the mat stack? Does she get off the mat stack and salute? There is no specific way to do it. I would always encourage coaches to have them just salute while they're up on the mat stack. That way you can start judging, and when she's ready to, well, she doesn't get a second ball, but then you're ready for the next person. They don't have to be off the mat stack before they salute.
Good point. So let's look at that vault and break it down a little bit so you can see. Number 1 is her arrival onto the table, and she's got a nice tight arch shape. She's got her head in line. She's got her flat armpits, open armpits. And so that's what we're looking for. We don't really want to see your head sticking out. Here is number 2, where she is on the table and she's leaving. So remember our angle of repulsion. We want them to leave by vertical. So that was a very good example. Here is her shape and her height. You can see she has nice height and repulsion off the table for number 3. Here's her landing position with her rotation where she's landing with her feet a little bit in front of her, still got that tight rounded body shape. And then as she falls to the mat stack. Now she did choose to land on her feet first, but she doesn't have to. So moving on from vaulting, we're going to talk about bars. So the 8-year-olds have a little different routine than the 9 and 10-year-olds. We will go through each one of those, and then we're going to do 5 video clips for each one that we'll evaluate. So you can judge them, you can write down your symbols, you can take notations of the deductions that you saw. We will see it in regular speed, and we'll give you a few seconds to write down what you saw, and then we'll show the script, and then we'll show it again in slow motion so that you'll be able to then see where we took the deductions. So things about bars. We have some general words here that are in the text that we don't really need to talk about right now, but just remember that the figures are a guide, the text is the rule. On bars, we have evaluation of different choices. So they can choose some different things to do, like a clear hip or a Stalder or a toe on. They get to choose which of those skills that they want to show us. So both of the level 8s or 8-year-old and the 9, 10-year-olds have some choices in there that they can do. They can mount from a raised surface. We don't really care. They can use a mat stack. They can use a springboard, whatever is comfortable for them. And just like any other competition, then they'd have to remove the mounting equipment. Equipment specs will be in the rules and policies book, so we're not going to talk about that right now. But an interesting thing that is different is the IEC has voted that the coaches must be present between the bars during the warm-ups and during the routine. So we want to make sure that the coaches are there to keep the athletes safe. Remember, these 8-year-olds are very young children and the bars are pretty far apart. So here are the elements of our 8-year-old bar routine. And Tom already mentioned that the elements are either 4/10 or 6/10. Very few of them are 2/10 or the 8/10ers. So glide kips are all 4/10. All casts are all 6/10. For the level or for the 8-year-olds, they need to do casting at 45 degrees above horizontal. Their cast angle deductions are up to 3/10. So if they're not at 45 degrees above horizontal on all casts, they could lose up to 3. Below horizontal is where you take the total 3. Cast to 2 times in a row, kip, cast, 45, kip, cast, 45. Then they do a clear hip circle to 45. And that's a 6/10er. All circles are 6/10 elements. Or they can choose the toe on, toe off at 45, or they can choose a back Stalder circle at 45 above horizontal. So then there's another glide kip after that, and another cast, 45, and then a back sole circle, toe circle around the bar and jump to the high bar. The toe circle around the bar is supposed to have straight legs until they get to the top, and then they can bend their knees to jump. They have to do a forward swing, tap swing, counter swing twice. The third one, they do a long hang pullover. Then they do an underswing, like in the level 5 compulsory, a third counter swing, a fourth tap and counter, and a flyaway dismount. And the flyaway could be a tuck or a stretched. So that's the routine. And I'm going to give you a few general deductions that could be taken or applied. We all know falls are 5/10. If they omit an element, and this is a little different, so we want to take 5/10 for omitting plus the value of the element. Not like in the compulsory program where you take double the value of element. So it's the value plus 5. So it could be 4 plus 5, it could be 6 plus 5. Now, if they substitute or change an element, it's the value of an element, okay? They do the wrong element. So we have the value, whether it's 4 or 6. If it's incomplete, and a lot of times they're trying a clear hip or a skill and they can't make it up and they turn and fall off, you take the fall and then you look at how much of the element they actually completed and you take up to the value. Okay, that is really not anything different. If they add an element, it's 3/10. But if they've fallen off, they're allowed to get back to the point of interruption, which I'll talk about again in a minute. Yeah. So spotting is up to the value of the element plus 5 for the spot. And again, you have to determine how much help the coach actually gave the athlete. So the 8-year-olds do have some exceptions. If the coach spots them as they jump to the high bar, that is not a deduction. Spotting the landing of a dismount or spotting a jump to the high bar, you still take the spot, but you don't take the value of the element. So coaching, nothing different there. Not performing to FIG specs, that you have to go to R&P. So let's talk about repeating an element. So if you think back to our compulsory program, when an athlete falls off on something and they get back on the equipment and they have to do some skills to get back to the point where they fell, we are not judging or deducting the repeated skills until they get to the point of interruption. So in optionals, it's different. In compulsories, we're using a compulsory rule here. So repeating an element after the fall, she does cast handstand falls after vertical, and she has to repeat the cast handstand to get into the next skill. We are not going to deduct the repetition until she gets to the point of interruption. Repeating an element without a fall, though, is different. And if she doesn't fall and she repeats something again, then we are deducting 3/10 for repetition of a skill. Amplitude of circle skills. So this is something that's different between the 8-year-olds and the 9-10-year-olds. We have up to 3 for handstands for everyone, but circles, we have up to 3/10 for the 8-year-olds because they only do a circle to 45 degrees. They don't have to go to a handstand. They certainly can, but the 9-10-year-olds, their deduction is up to 4, more like the optional clear hip deductions we have, because we expect them to go to vertical. So we'll see that as we see some examples. So here we're going to show you the sample routine of the girl actually doing it well and all the skills she's supposed to do as an 8-year-old. So here she goes. No, we're just watching.
She's obviously doing more than what's required.
When you go to the text and you look at the things that you see a lot of similarities here between our compulsories and some optionals, you know her angles only have to be at 45 for no deduction on amplitude. The counter swings follow our compulsory rules. We have up to 2 for the amplitude on those. The circle skills, we're looking at 45 for the 8-year-olds, and we're looking at obviously body shape and finishing the angle when her wrists shift. So that is very similar to what we do at the lower levels. So I'm going to show it one more time just so you get a good idea of what we really would like to see. And remember, it is required that the coach is standing between the bars. Okay, so that was your little view of what we'd like to see, but now we're going to move on to actual children doing them. Oops, that's the same one. I got to move on. All right, so now we're going to start with example number 1. She's going to do the first segment. You get your paper and pencil because you can script this, and then you can look at deductions. We'll go over them in just a minute. So here she goes. Okay, make some notes on your paper. We're looking mostly just execution here and see if she left anything out. What I find when I do this, it's a good idea to make yourself a little cheat sheet of the like a judging form with the elements written across the top, so you can go back and review when you wrote down what she did to see if she did what she was supposed to do. So here is what she did. So, or didn't do. She did a glide kip. We had a little knees. You could see her knees. Her cast was 45. Her angle was okay. But again, her legs were loose. She had her feet flexed and a little bit of body position. But what happened next was she did the clear hip right away. And she left out the second glide kip and the second cast to 45. So here's an example of what you would take. So deliberate omission is 9/10. It's the element plus 5. And she did it twice. So the kip is 4/10 and the cast is 6/10. So she lost a lot there. And she just went kip, cast, and went clear hip right away. So that was something to note. I missed that the first time. Just seemed real short. So then the clear hip, we had bent arms and we had a little bit of body position as well. So the back toe circle she did, and she bent her knees early. She's supposed to have straight legs as she gets on the bar and falls down, and on her way back up, she can start to bend them to jump to the bar. And we had a 10th in body position for her jump to the bar. So now we're going to watch her again in slow, and let's see how it looked. So she's got the knees slightly bent there. She's got some little arms there as well. Her angle was okay, but now she did the clear hip right away with the bent arms and the feet. And notice how her knees were bending right away. If you bend your knees at the bottom of the circle, it's the 2/10. So that was the first girl's example. So hopefully you caught that. And if you missed that she did leave out some things, that's great. We'll be better the next time. So let's do number 2. See what we catch this time. So we'll see her in regular and then slow. All right, now hopefully you caught on this time because she did the same thing wrong. So this girl started with her glide kip. She didn't quite have good extension. She had knees and a little bit of arms, and then she did her cast 45, was a little bit short of 45 degrees. So we took 05, a little bit of arms and body. And then She omitted again. So this girl also omitted the second sequence of glide kip casts. So we had those same deductions. Then she did the clear hip right after her first cast, and she had bent arms. Her angle was low. We took 0.25 and 0.5 in body. She did kip cast after that. She had a little archy in her body and 1/10 for knees. And then we took 3/10 on her additional cast of 45, which was low. So we had the 3 for the angle. We didn't deduct for adding that because she needed to get there to do the back toe circle. So she added it after the clear hip. So she was supposed to go kip cast, then clear hip, then right into the back toe circle. 2/10 for the early knee bend. And remember, when their knees are bent at the bottom of the swing, we have the 2. Jump to the high bar was 1/10 for body position. So let's watch her in slow. Knees, we got arms, we got a little short there. Now she's doing the clear hip, which was quite short, of 45 with the extension and the legs there, and the squat on to the bent knees pretty much all the way around. And her jump to the high bar just loose.
Now, one thing to add, if you remember, when we started the bar lecture, we said that you do not take execution on repeated skills. Now, that was after a fall to get back into the rhythm of the routine. In this example, where she added the glide kip into the sole circle, the back sole circle, it's not that she fell, but she added an extra element that the committee did not want it to be a deduction for adding the element, but they still do, in this example, take the execution errors because it wasn't followed by a fall.
And she could not connect it into that. She had to do a kip cast to connect into that back toe circle. All right, so number 3. Now we notice the coach is standing where she's supposed to be between the bars the whole time. So here goes number 3. Okay, that was a different section of the routine. Let's see what happened. There we go. All right, so she did her kip cast. She had execution errors, but she didn't need to start there, but she had to get to the back toe circle. So no deduction for adding, but we took execution. So the cast, we took 3/10 before the toe circle. And if you notice, the toe circle had execution and the early knee bend. So it totaled 3. The jump to the high bar section, she fell. So the coach grabbed her to keep her safe. That's what the coach is supposed to do. We don't deduct for the spot there, but she still took 5/10 for the fall. So then the coach actually then gave her a push to do the first tap swing, counter swing. So we do take 5/10 for the spot and 3 for the counter there that she did. And amplitude as well. And the amplitude of those counter swings on the forward swing, they're supposed to have their feet level with the high bar. And on the counter swing back, it's supposed to be that 15 degrees, just like we have in level 5 of the amplitude and the shape. So we have those deductions here because she did not have good amplitude and 3/10 for the completion of that first forward counter swing.
Sorry, we spelled completion
We have
wrong.
a typo.
I'm sure we have people in the audience that are going, they spelled that wrong. They spelled that wrong. So thank you so much.
We'll fix it. Okay, so she had to have a lot of amplitude there, and then they do the pullover, and she did the pullover with her legs bent, her arms were bent, Just like in compulsory, body position wasn't good, legs were loose, so we had a lot of deductions there. So we can watch her in slow. And we have little there, you see the feet and the knees bent all the way around. And as she jumped, she was loose and bent. And now she took the fall, but no spot there. No deduction for spot. And now she's going to actually give her a push. And that'll be her first forward swing, which has a spot. And then look at the amplitude lacking on the counter and the forward and the counter and the looseness of the legs. Then she does the pullover with bent arms, bent legs, her head was back. So there was a lot of execution in that particular example. So now we're going to go on to number 4, and she's going to do that second sequence as well. Well, that'll throw you off because she did something totally wrong. So let's look at what she did. She did that cast, no deduction for adding that, but we take the angle of the cast, 0.25. And then the toe circle, total or early knee bend again, all the way around. Start straight, bend on the way up is what's allowed. Jump to the high bar. She had a hesitation to get there.
So I do want to make a comment about the back toe circle. I know you're looking at your text and it says bent legs at the bottom of the circle, 2/10. I think what Linda and I did, the reason we put 2.5 is because she bent them on the cast into the squat on. So we took a small deduction for that bending going into the placement of the toes on the bar. And then in addition, the 2/10 of the early bend. So that's why we have 2.5 as opposed to just what it says as 2.
Correct. So now you saw that she jumped to the high bar, but she did a kip. And so she had a substitution of an element. She didn't do the first counter tap, she did a kip. So we take the value of the element for substitution. And on the second one, 6/10. So she had 6 and 6. And then the tap swing to the pullover, she did have bent knees and arms bent and just body not tight. And remember, we're looking for a nice stretched body with straight arms going over the top of the bar. All right, here she goes in slow. Okay, we're going to go back to that script because we do have a little error in there. She did a kip to the high bar, which is substituting the first counter swing, but she didn't even do the next one. So this should not be substitution. It should be 6 + 5 because she omitted the next counter swing, tap swing. So we are going to fix that slide for us, 6 + 5. All right, number 5 on the 8-year-old side. She starts on the high bar and does the ending sequence. They are allowed to land on their feet and fall backwards out of the dismount. So here's what she did. We're looking at the underswing, the 4th tap swing, and the flyaway. So she had to do a counter swing, tap swing, counter swing, tap swing, dismount. And she didn't, the underswing was a little bit loose. It wasn't nice and tight. Her head was falling backwards and body position. And then She did the fourth tap swing, counter swing, didn't do it. So we have 6 + 5, deliberate omission. And then the flyaway, we do want to see the height of the salto, the level of the high bar. And then she didn't tap. So there was no tap. So that's a 1/10, and then a little on feet. So let's watch her. Here she goes. Under swing, see her head falling backwards. Here's our counter. And then she just does the dismount. She's supposed to do another forward swing, counter swing to get to the dismount. So those are all kinds of things that little children might do. And now we're going to move on to the 9 and 10-year-old bars. So that has some different elements and it's a little bit longer. So we're just going to kind of show it to you here and just read it. She goes kip, cast, handstand, kip, cast, handstand. Then she has choices, clear hip, toe on, Stalder, and she has to do 2. So she can do 2 clear hips, 2 toe ons, or 2 Stalders, or 1 of each. Then she does her toe circle. She does long hang, cast handstand, giant, giant, and flyaway stretched. So that's the routine. Refer to your text. Here's our first girl giving you the sample. We're not judging her. We're just looking to see how it looks. Okay, the difference is she has giants. Notice how she had a nice toe circle with her legs straight. That was nice. She had 2 different circles. That's what she chose to do. And that's okay. A little bit bent arms on her circles.
I will add one point of just letting you know the people that are on this webinar or this Zoom call, that she does do 2 separate circles or 2 different circles. Like Linda said, if you were an elite compulsory judge, you do bonus in that when you were judging the elite compulsory. There is no bonus, or even, you don't even have to think about it. You just judge execution.
And she just had little bent arms. All right, so now we're going to watch girl number 1 do that first segment and take some deductions. Okay. So what happened there was she did her kip cast handstand. We don't need to keep talking about that. But now remember, these girls have to go to handstand, and we take their up to 3 angle deduction from the vertical. So that's different than the 8-year-olds. And their circles, we have up to 4 for the clear hips and the toe-ons for the amplitude of those, whereas we have up to 3 for the 8-year-olds. But she left out the second glide kip cast handstand. So we took those deductions for deliberate omission. And then the clear hip handstand, the first one she did, she fell. We took 2 for incomplete and 5 for the fall and little arms and body. Then she did a kip cast handstand after that, or kip cast, which because she fell, we're not deducting for that. And we're going to let her get back to the point of interruption. So the clear hip handstand after that just had body position and little arms. Then she went glide kip, cast handstand, and now she added an element because she should go right to the toe circle from the clear hip handstand. So we had 3/10 for adding, plus the angle.
Yeah, and plus the execution, because remember, you do take execution when this clear hip, she didn't fall. So you will be doing it. She's adding it.
She's adding it, so we judge it all. And then the toe circle, little early knee bend, jump to the high bar was a spot. As she reached to the bar, we probably could have had a little more execution in there, and the long hang we did not deduct. So let's see how it looked in slow, so you can remind yourself what was left out. Well, knees, feet. Okay, here's our first cast. And she does the clear hip and she gets up there past 45. So we took 2/10 for incomplete +5. And now to resume the routine, she's got to do a kip cast again. So we're going to let her do that without penalty. And no execution until now. She's doing the second clear hip. And now she's supposed to toe on, but she couldn't. So she has to do a kip cast again. And then we are deducting those and 3/10 for adding. And then she jumps to the high bar to do her long hang. Okay.
Okay, let's go back just for 1 second.
To this.
Yeah. No, okay, we're good,
All right.
I think.
You remind me if you find
Yeah.
something.
Okay, hold on one more time, go back. Yeah, this is the first time we're putting this all together. We practiced, but we're still finding errors. This one, if not directly connected from the circle element, the gymnast is allowed an additional kip cast answer with no deduction for adding an element. However, appropriate deductions of the cast will be there. So sorry, everybody, and hopefully you caught that. In this example, after the clear hip, in this specific example, we do allow her to do an extra kip cast, but we do take execution. So where
We
it
don't
says
take
3/10
execution.
adding an element, that is incorrect in this slide.
Okay. So now let's go to number 2. Okay. So glide kip cast, execution, little short on the angle, second glide kip cast. She actually did it correctly. And then she did the clear hip. And then she did the next one. She fell, but we took the fall and we took a little incomplete, but we allowed her then to do the kip cast handstand after it with no penalty to get back to the routine because she has to do the toe circle. And then she did jump to the bar. This was just general execution. Deduction was not applied because of the repetition is okay to restart the routine again. So let's look at her slow. Fast is short. That cast is a little better. Our clear hip is a little short, a handstand with little arms and body, same thing, but she was more complete than the other girl that fell. So we only took 1 on incomplete instead of 2. And now there's no deduction for resuming here and repeating, getting back, and no execution till now when she gets to the toe circle. Okay. So let's go to the next. Does not want to move forward to number 3. And we'll see what sequence she shows us. Here she goes. Mhm. Okay. There were some errors there. So kip cast, and obviously we're looking at deliberate omission of the kip cast. And then we had the clear hip. Her angle of completion was low. The second one was worse. So we had even 3 on the second one. And now she added an element. No, we didn't add an element. We changed that. We're allowing her to do that. We have to take off that 3/10.
Yeah, so we messed that up again.
Yeah.
Sorry, everybody.
There's a lot of changes, but
Yeah.
we're gonna fix them all. The back toe circle, she left out, jumped to the high bar 3/10 for an extra swing to get to the kip. So let's watch this again. Notice those clear hips are quite short and they had execution. And she's no toe circle. And then she did an extra swing. So we had a lot of deductions at the end for her. All right. And yes, we had deliberate omission on the toe circle. All right, number 4. Okay, she's getting to the end of the routine. So cast a handstand was short. Back toe circle around the bar was early knee bend again. The jump to the bar, just body position there in that part. And then she had an extra swing. She stopped, had an extra swing on the high bar till she got to the giants, and she was doing 2 giants. First one just had arms and body and feet, but the second one she fell on. So she didn't complete it all the way around. So we took 5 for the fall, 2 for completion. Because she's allowed to do this.
Yeah,
Let's watch
to
her.
get
And
back in.
she's starting her sequence. And so we should allow her to get to the toe circle
You're right.
without that
Yeah,
deduction.
so we should not have deducted on that.
And that cast was definitely short. And now we have 1 giant, and now she's gonna do the second one. And she just can't quite make it. So we have incomplete plus the fall. And now we'll move on to the last girl. She's starting on the high bar. And remember the dismount, she's allowed to land and fall to her back. Handstand, we just had arms and body. The angle was okay. The 2 giants were just a little body position. And then the flyaway, remember we wanted to rotate the height of the high bar. She was pretty good. It was just body and feet. And then there is no deduction for falling because she's allowed to do that. So let's watch the last one again. She's got some flex feet there, and she had nice height, pretty good shape. All right. So that's it for bars. And we are going to move on to balance beam.
Okay, so changing gears now. All right, the balance beam elements. Okay, you'll see this is the part we talked about with the kicks, that 8/10. So that's it. That's the only place in the routines where it has 8/10, but each one of the kicks are only worth 2. So the forward 2, there's 2 forward, 2 sideward, 2 backward, and then 1 needle. Those are only worth 2/10 each. So all the rest of them, I'm not going to read through all of them. You can read through all of what they are, the jumps, the handstand, the back handspring, all those things. These are the elements that we're going to be looking at and evaluating. Just to reminder for those things, we cross this stuff out at the beginning of it because it really doesn't apply to the evaluation of it. This is just taken from the TOPS text so that everybody that's doing TOPS knows about that. Judging, you're not going to need to know that you don't give awards for TOPS. Okay, just like Linda had said, the general guidelines, the figures or the book or a guideline. What we're doing obviously is a guideline, and then you follow the text because we obviously made several mistakes on bars that we tried to catch while we were going through this. But so if you go back to that, hopefully you have volume that you can hear that we messed up on those things. Hopefully we did better on beam and floor. We'll see. The other thing I want to point out is when it comes down to the choreography, there's things that are asked for to be fluid movements of 1 to 3 movements. The sideward section has to be 3 traveling movements. How do you apply deductions? What do you do with that? You're going to use your artistry category of what you would have in optional routines. So choreography, if there's things that aren't moving, aren't interesting, or they don't even follow any type of choreography, you have your 1/10 category in artistry to deal with that. If what they're doing is very sloppy and they're not doing actually up to 0.15. And then in quality of movement is the other one for the creative and choreography movements. Talks about the 8-incher being underneath the beam, the arm positions, and all of those things. Pretty much know that you're going to be looking for the ideal positions, but know that you take into consideration a child's flexibility as you do in the compulsories. If it says side middle and your arms are pressed back a little bit, that's fine. So just read through that to know what the expectations are. This is just a continuation of that. The last thing that I would say is at the very bottom. At this present time, there is no time limit. We didn't set anything for minimum or maximum. So you don't have to have a timer when you're doing these routines. Okay, going through some of these things, Linda already did this, but I want to just point out a couple things. This thing on tempo, the second row, tempo, continuity of connection on dance or mixed series. So we don't have a deduction in the compulsory routines, but we do have a tempo deduction in the optional routines. They wanted a tempo deduction, they meaning the IEC. So that is an up to 2/10 deduction. So we made a mistake and had it underlined, so we corrected it there. Concentration pause is the same. Failure to connect an acro series, each 3/10. Well, there isn't an acro series in the 8-year-olds, although you have the handstand back walkover. But when you get to the back handspring, that has in the 9 and 10-year-olds, those are major things that you will be taking in the 3/10 if they're not connected. I just did want to point out that this is not an optional deduction. You don't have that deduction in optional routines. Changing, reversing, adding, that's in your compulsory book. So we're doing that. The substituting or changing a major element, that's the value of the element. That is a change from your compulsory book because your compulsory book puts substituting and omitting together. They don't do that here in this routine. So if you substitute and do something as change it or substitute it, that's the value of the element, as opposed to what we do in the compulsory book where it's double. The next thing, Linda did this already on bars, omitting an element. Instead of in the compulsory book where you have double the value, it's only the value plus 5. Incomplete element is obviously not in the optional book. You wouldn't give them credit depending on how much they do. The spotting, Linda went over that as well already. Verbal, that's the same as what we've done. Not performing the routine according to the FIG specs. We don't have that obviously in the compulsory book or in the optional book, but it's what they want for moving forward with these routines so that they're preparing them for the elite compulsory. And then the repetition stuff, hopefully we caught all these a little bit better. Those things, the repeating the element, no deduction for repeating it. If they do split jump fall, they get back up and do split jumps to sewn to get back into the rhythm of the routine, they're fine. Okay, so we're gonna go on. And this is the actual 8-year-old routine.
Hey, Addie.
Okay, nicely done. All right, we're gonna go through now
We
some
didn't have a script. That's right.
some very creative versions of these routines. You'll be smiling as they go. And before I forget, much thanks to all of these clubs that helped us create these videos for all of us judges and the coaches to learn with that. I neglected to say that at the beginning. So thank you so much for Hills Gymnastics for doing the bars. And this right here that you see is Cincinnati Gymnastics. Thank you very much for them letting us. And when we get to floor, it's Buckeye Gymnastics. So here we go. Are your pens and pencils ready? You're going to start now. Okay, let's go through this. Lots of good stuff. The mount, feet. This is a specific deduction fair to touch the torso to the beam for this choreography that they're supposed to be doing. If you watch during that first girl, please don't expect that exact same choreography. If you read the text, it does give them the ability to do something, but she does nothing. So you would put a C on your paper for overall consideration of overall choreography. If there's nothing in there at all, you can consider up to 1 for the artistry category. In compulsory is up to 0.15. I think I said that earlier, but I probably misspoke because we have 3 categories in optional. So we'll go to the benefit of the athlete, which is this category of choreography is only up to 1. F on your paper for consideration of overall footwork. The deduction is up to 3. So you would have to look at all the rest of the Fs on your paper to determine how much of the up to 3 you're going to take. All right, so here's now where we get into these leg swings. And if you were an elite compulsory judge, you knew that this category, this section, there were lots of deductions and kids were losing a lot. So in speaking with the International Elite Committee, the IEC, what their directives were was that they do not want it more than 2/10, no matter how many errors they make in each category. So what I did was I put in little things for you to consider if they have a small, a medium, or a large deduction, and then be able to interpret that to go how you feel about how much of the two. These kicks were very much lacking. So almost in all the category, we looked at 2/10 deduction. So that's your kicks. Let's go back. You look at this routine again, or this little section again, and see what you think. So they're supposed to go down and let their torso go down onto the beam. She chooses not to do that. So that is a specific 1/10 deduction. And she does a little choreography, a little bit, not much. Then here come the kicks. They need to be straight. They need to be in full releve. They have the amplitude. You've got alignment of those. That one's not even to the side. Then you've got height. The expectation is up, at least horizontal. And here's your needle kick. Should be 180-degree split. So that hopefully is not a typical example of what the 8-year-olds will do, but I kind of think it might be.
She's only 8.
She is only 8. Okay, we're going on. This is the next section. So clear your paper, draw a big line across, and here we go. Okay. I want you to know, just a little editorial, that the athletes at this gym are phenomenal athletes. I gave them all these mistakes and said, you have to be bad so that we can learn. So these kids are like, I don't want to do this wrong. But we did this for our purposes of being able to get better and learn how to deal with mistakes. Oh, there's the script. Okay, so we're starting with the Sassoon. Height, feet, posture, split, wobble, and then she broke the series because those are things that have to be connected. So there's a 2/10 deduction for breaking the series. The split jump, height, feet, split, wobbling. So quite a lot of things to take off. Not sure that it'll be quite that bad, but there you go, of learning how to apply all your deductions. The pose sequence didn't have a deduction. The cross handstand, the staggered hands, 0.5 to 1 for vertical, 1/10 and hold, the alignment of the legs, and then she stops after she sits down, and there's a broken acro series. You must connect those two. On the flick flack, 1/10 for the knees, 1/10 for the feet. You can see all those deductions that we have. 1 to 1.5 for completion. You know, this seems to still be this is a compulsory deduction. In your mind, that you're not using the development program code of points to look at how this is completed. This is like compulsories. You give her credit. It's a 6/10 element. You give her credit for how much of the element is completed. That still seems to be a problem, even in our compulsory program, that judges are not applying that deduction. Some people are saying she didn't get all feet on the top of the beam and they still want to take the whole element. No, that is incorrect. You give her credit for how much she's completed. So that's what that is. And then she falls. So let's go on and see the slow motion version. Ouch. And then she scoots and stops. And then another ouch. But here's a little pose sequence, very fine. Then the handstand is expected to go to vertical with their feet close together. Just wanted to point out that when they're doing the handstand position, if you look at the text, it's different than what we have in our compulsory level 3 and level 4 handstand. It says cross handstand with legs together or slightly separated. So you're not going to expect them to have them joined. So that is a little different. Okay, let's go on to the next version. Next sample, number 3. Everybody ready? Okay. Is this cutie again? Okay. That little snippet that we did. Oh, Linda. Get to the. All right. So her little choreography. There's supposed to be an artistic sequence of approximately 1 to 3 backward moving toward the end of the beam. Didn't feel like she really did that. And with that, not much, the quality of movement of not doing anything is very poor, lacking. And, you could also consider footwork in there too. Switch leap, 1/10 on the takeoff for the swing amplitude, 1/10 for feet, 2/10 for height, 2/10 for split, 0.5 for wobble. We're probably maxing all of this. And if I watched it a couple other times, I could probably kick in something for posture as well. But it's obviously 2, 4, 5, 6.5 tenths major deductions. The horizontal leg balance, 1/10 for feet. It has to be on releve and it has to be held. So she's not there either. Okay, let's watch it in slow. Then maybe she'll hold that leg balance if we do it in slow. Oh gosh, she's a cutie. Maybe some apparel thing deductions with all the stuff on her wrist. All right, so here's your backward choreography. Yeah, and flat-footed work. Okay, switch, leap. Well, she actually does perform a switch of her legs. Leg, even in slow, I can't give her a hold. So, but she was told not to hold. All right, going on, we'll keep going. Number 4. Pencils ready, pens ready, and here we go. That can be a front walkover or front handspring. Okay, so they can do either one. Now, I guess we didn't talk about concentration pauses. To be perfectly honest, we were just getting ready to do the video, but I think you would apply a concentration pause for sure, if that's what it was. All right. The front walkover, she's choosing to not do a front handspring. She's doing a front walkover. So the expectation of a front walkover, just as a back walkover in compulsories, is 180-degree split of a slow flexibility acro skill. So 1.5 tenths off for split, 0.5 for feet. Cartwheel, failure to pass through the vertical, head is out of alignment, failure to square the hips before the step down. That is not something that's in our compulsory book, but that's something specific that the elite program is looking for. And then your wobble. Okay, slow motion. Could even consider a little bit of knees in there. We have that alignment. That is not considered to be a series. So if you were thinking, well, she stopped in between those, is that a 3/10 deduction? This is not listed as a series of wanting 2 things directly connected. So that would be no. Okay, number 5, there she is. Okay, pencils ready? Here we go.
Sequence number 5, balance beam, 8-year-old.
Here's her side choreography. Into her full turn. Into her dismount sequence. With a lovely ta-da finish. Okay, side choreography, 1/10 for feet, a C on the choreography for consideration of overall choreography, and then the Q on the paper for, is she pulling off a beautiful quality of movement of what she did? So I have little notations to check all that, including that for the end of the routine. Full turn, okay. So we've got changing the leg position, the releve. Remember, changing or substituting a major element is the value of the element. So we did not give her the element. And then the wobble. Then 6/10 substitution. Okay, for the round off skill. So the round off, she does a cartwheel. So that's a substituting a skill, which is the value of the element. And then she broke the connection. That's supposed to be directly connected and goes into the back salto dismount, height, posture on landing, posture on takeoff. No deduction for the step on landing. We don't deduct for that. So there's your side choreography with your footwork. Here's your full turn. That's definitely not a full turn. And here's your round off. That's not a round off. So you're substituting. And here's your broken connection into your back tuck. And finish. Yes. All right. Linda, any comments?
I think there's a lot to look at here, but just remember, these are little 8-year-olds. So they're not going to have the finesse and the quality and movement that the older children will. Hopefully we'll see that in the 9 and 10-year-olds. We'll see a little better. But overall, it's going to be execution. Are they doing the right elements? Are they in the right order?
Okay, as we go to the 9 and 10-year-old balance beam, almost all the elements are the same. You know, the mount sequence, the choreography, what we're asking for. There are a few differences. There are 2 back handsprings or flip-flops, flick-flacks, whatever you call them, into the for the acro series. And all the dismount variations must include a salto stretched dismount. They're not allowed to do a tuck. Okay, so we're going to go through. The first, this is the ideal version, and these are the ones that are online in the USAG website that you can refer back to if you say, oh gosh, where can I find this? This is on the website, along with all the other first routines that we've been showing along the way. It doesn't have to be an element, she does. There's the torso on the beam with her artistic movements. And she'll get ready to kick. The forward kicks, the sideward kicks, the backward kicks, and the needle kick. Your Sassone into your split jump, you notice she closed in front. It doesn't matter. You can close in front or back. Little choreography before the handstand into the 2 flip-flacks. Very nice. She chose to close her feet as opposed to lunge. You can do either one, I think. I'll check that. There's our switch leap, and here's our 2-second hold balance. Okay. Here's our cartwheel. I missed that. I'm sorry, I didn't comment on that other one. Now's our side choreography. Little jazzy interpretation. Our full turn. and she's preparing for her dismount. She's choosing to do back handsprings into her layout salto. Please note, judges, that when you read that, I'm checking one thing real quick.
Flat, straight down, immediately close. Left leg.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. So I said, when I was talking about the closure of the acro series, and I said lunge or close, the elite program requires a close, not a lunge. So that would be a little error for not closing. What I was going to say is, if when you look at the text, you're going to see that there's all kinds of choices into the dismounts. You can do the round off, you can do the flick flack, the step out, you can do flick flack 2 feet. It's A, B, C. There's lots of choices. So there we go. All right, it's time for fun. Pens ready. We're going to do the mount sequence. Okay. Are we ready? So also in that choreography, she didn't touch her torso to the beam. So that's a specific deduction listed. And then once again, the choreography could have been more, not much artistic there. Now, in terms of, if you look at these leg swings, the deductions that we are carrying throughout, 1 to 1.5, 1, and then 2, and then 2. So the first two categories were better than the first girl that we saw for the 8-year-olds, but we still had big deductions on the needle and a big deduction. The thing is that you're going to have to realize is, well, as a judge, I'm thinking with the 8-year-old, my gosh, you know, I'm taking a 10.5. The other girl I took 2. That's really not showing much separation. We struggle as judges and coaches watching this, just so you know, we struggle with the concept of trying to separate and show more separation. These rules do not allow a big enough separation if the kicks are terrible versus the kicks are medium versus small. So just know that this section, it will not be possible, in my opinion, to show a great level of separation with your athletes. The judges only can do what they have with the tools that are given them. Here's the slow motion version. No torso. Nice height, but she's not on toe. Yeah, it's real slow. Let's hope she never competes at that slow. Okay, one thing popped into my head when I was doing this, creating this and working with Linda on this, and as you're evaluating, I'm sure there's some of you that are thinking, wow, I was more severe on that. And there's some of you that are thinking, wow, I was much more lenient than they were on that. Please remember that that's why we have 2 judges, so that everybody has their different evaluation and everybody sits down with a banquet of skill levels. Some people that were dancers will think a little differently on some of these things. We're moving on. Now to the next example.
This is video 2, balance beam.
All right, here we go. Okey-doke. Everybody set? Okay, this is sewn. Posture, height, execution of the knees, little wobble. So with that little wobble, breaks the series. 1/10 of posture and height on the split jump, the pose sequence. We didn't deduct anything. The cross handstand has to be held. She didn't hold. Remember though, the hold does not necessarily have to be with your legs joined. It can be with your legs slightly separated. So that's why you won't see a deduction there. Then she falls. So when she falls on that, that brings in the completion deduction. I guess I could have put 1/10 no hold, then fall, then completion. But either way, part of the handstand, and the handstand is a 4/10 element. So if she never gets back up and comes from the point of interruption, which was the top of the handstand, she never completed the cross handstand because she never stepped down out of the cross handstand. So that's that's why you see the 2/10 completion deduction for the cross handstand. Obviously she fell, she broke her series, then the flick flack, 05 for arms on each of the flip flop being bent. Watch it in slow. So body posture on the entrance, body posture again on the entrance. A little bit better. Little pose, nice, changes her focus. Here she goes into her handstand. It goes up and it goes off. So it doesn't hold. And as I spoke earlier, she should, if she wants to try to not get that 2/10 completion deduction, she should have done the handstand again. But since she doesn't, you take off the 2/10 for completion and start right here. Little bit of elbows, little bit of elbows. She closes her feet and finishes. Okay. Number 3. Okay, so choreography out of that flick, flack, you should see some choreography, 1 to 3 backward movements towards the end of the beam. No turns allowed, not much there. So we took off. I have a C on my paper for the choreography. Okay, now you might ask, why do I have a C and not a 1/10? Because remember, in the artistry category, it's up to the whole routine. So you can't just start putting ones down on your paper for choreography sections because the maximum is 1/10. So that's why I have put a C on your paper and then see how many C's you have on your paper to determine how much of that 1/10 you're going to take off. Switch leap, 1/10 for knees, 1/10 for height, 1/10 for split. The horizontal leg balance, just as it is in level 8, has to be held and has to be held on toe. She did not hold it. Okay, let's watch it in slow. Okay. Moving on to number 4. Remember, there's 5 clips, everybody. Having a rough day. Okay. All right. Well, that was supposed to be the full turn. So, I mean, maybe you weren't sure where I was picking up on the clip, but that was, she does a half turn. It should have been a full turn. It's worth 4/10. So that would have been the substitution deduction. Front walkover, again, it requires a 180-degree split. She's not doing that. They do have an option to do a front handspring. So if they did a springing action, you're not going to have that requirement for full split. But since she's chosen to do a front walkover, the insufficient split deduction applies. 0.5 for feet, then she fell. She gets back up. You don't see a series deduction here because it's not supposed to be a series. It doesn't have to be. Then 0.5 feet, and then she falls again. Okay. And we have one more clip for you to watch. Hey, hold on. I think I might have made a mistake. Oh, okay. You guys had to go back because you're probably screaming at me now that you think of it. I put substitution. I was flying through this pretty fast. Obviously, on the previous one, when she does the half turn before the front handspring or the front walkover, and I put substitution, I'm so sorry. I apologize because that was supposed to be a half turn because here's the full turn. So now you could probably go, yeah. You're probably wanting to call me right then and there while you're watching this. No need. We filmed this on November 3rd, so we're long gone. Okay, so let's go over this one. So this is where there's supposed to be side choreography. Before that, she didn't do any side choreography. Then this was like she started from the cartwheel. So then we go into the full turn, 1/10 for the leg position, a 1/10.5 for a wobble, the round off or the flick flack dismount, or the flick flack, a 10th, 0.05 for body position, and then on the back salto, 2/10 for height, a 1/10.5 for posture taken on the takeoff position, all leaned back and arched, and then no deduction for the step on the landing. All right, so that clears up balance beam. Well, Linda, we did better. I think we only made one mistake during that one. Okay. All right, we're going to go to floor exercise. Please note that there's no music to accompany these routines, and therefore there's no time either. General faults and penalties and execution and body position, just like we've done on balance beam. Going through this quickly, we crossed out those things just like we did at the beginning in terms of that are dealing with the competition, Zoom, and all that stuff. The figures and the text are a guideline. All that stuff is exactly the same. The next page goes through exactly the same of everything that we talked about, of side diagonal arms, what that means. They can be pressed back. They can be, so all of that's the same. And this is exactly what you have in your elite compulsory if you're judging that as well. All right. Execution in floor, pretty much exactly what we did on beam. The only thing different I really want to point out is the third row under concentration pauses. That's up to 2 on balance beam. It's only 1/10 on floor. So that's why those are in a strike through. If you had the old compulsory text, those were in there. We will, before you're able to watch this presentation, we will have corrected these in the new compulsory text. So those you won't even see those. So if you're looking at the text right now and say, I don't even see those, this was in the first draft. But for those of you that might have the old one, I wanted to point that out so that you understand. Okay, and I went over all those other things in terms of substituting, omitting, all that other stuff is exactly the same as what I mentioned in beam. So I'm not going to go over it again. Here are the elements in the routine. Pay attention to the body positions that are being required for an handspring front pike, salto, the leap, a switch leap, a tour jeté, run off flick flack, layout salto, a forward body wave, jump full turn, split jump, straddle jump. Make sure you're looking at the order. Those, the split jump and the straddle jump, have to be connected, and they have to be in that order. So if they're not in that order, you have a reversing deduction of something out of the order of the major elements. The kicks are all there. We're 2/10 extended forward roll. So it's not so much a dive roll per se, but it's not like a level 1 forward roll in the compulsory book. Then you're asking for a front limber, a front walkover, 2 cartwheels into a piked backward roll. All right, let's watch the 8-year-old sample routine. No music, no time. This is what we're looking for. Okay, everybody. Well, welcome to the world of creating things. As I looked through this, the video that was online, if you're our TOPS coach, the video that was online on first only had 1 cartwheel. When I was creating this with Linda, I noticed that she only did 1 cartwheel. So I asked them to do it again. And Buckeye Gymnastics was so gracious that they did it again. But now that I look at this routine, I wonder if we show it again. You'll look that she does a handspring tuck front, and it's supposed to be a pike front. So I might be asking Buckeye to do it yet again, and maybe you'll have the new one on the by the time you watch this video presentation, it'll be a pike, but that was supposed to be a pike. This is correct as a layout. And here's your jump full turn. And then your sequence of jumps, the split into that. And your full turn, you have options of what position. Your kick, you have options. Then this is a side 1 or 2, however many chasses you need to get to the corner. Your little dive, your little roll into your front walkover with 2 cartwheels into your backward roll. And the entrance in that is a little bit different than what we have in our compulsory exercises. Okay. All right, we're going to now go through some of our examples. Have your pen ready, please. And we're going to do the first sequence. Okay. Well, I gave the first thing away, just telling you like 2 seconds ago about the front salto. Whoops. So on the front handspring to 2 feet, a 10th lack of lightness, then changing a major element is the value of the element. Changing meaning that, and sometimes people get confused of what that is. She's still doing a salto. She's just changing the body position of doing a tuck instead of a pike. So changing is a 6/10 deduction. Then 3/10 for height and 5/10 for the fall. Then she's supposed to do this choreography to the corner. We put a C on our paper for consideration for the overall choreography and the quality of movement as well. All right, Not that we need to see it slow, but we will watch it slow. So the front tuck deduction error, in my opinion, as a coach, comes from the takeoff position of the front handspring, not having her feet underneath her enough and her hips forward. So it kind of blocks her back, which makes her go low and makes her fall. So this gymnast needs to work harder on that front handspring, and then that flip will be better, but she has a great one. I made her do it. Okay, going on to the next example. So we've already done the front handspring and we've already done the choreography to the corner. And now we're going into the entrance of the chassé switch leap. Okay. See if you caught any mistakes there. So on the switch leap, 1/2 tenth for her back leg being bent a little bit, then changing a small part. All of the entrances into the tour jeté, the IEC, the International Elite Committee, wants a side chassé entrance. So just like in our level 3 routine and 4 routine and 5 routine in the development program, the expectation is a side chassé. And if they do a forward chassé, just like in our compulsories, this is a small part that she has changed, and the deduction is 1/10. Then the F on your paper for consideration of overall footwork. And then for the tour jeté, 1/10 for failure to show the squared hips on takeoff, 1/10 for height, 1/10.5 for split, and 0.5 for failure to close the feet on landing. Okay. Slow motion. So a slight bent leg, forward chassé instead of sideways. You could have had a footwork entrance into the tour jeté and then split height, alignment, and landing with the feet apart. Okay. Going on to clip number 3. I was screaming when I got this video. Who is that person behind there? Pay no attention to the person in the back of the picture. Okay. All right, choreography. So after that, that switch leap, you're supposed to see, I'm sorry, the tour jeté, you're supposed to see the second little optional transition of choreography, 3 to 4 movements, and, there wasn't any. So you would put a C on your paper for the choreography. Then we have the roundup back handspring layout salto stretched. Nothing for the roundup or the flick flack. We have 1/10 for height on the salto, and then 6/10, as I mentioned before, the position is supposed to be stretched. She's changing the body position to a tuck, so she loses 6/10 for changing the major element, and then 1 step on the landing. Then you have a body wave that happens after that. They were asking for these in this TOPS routine. It's in the elite compulsories as well. So we have a deduction of 1/5, failure to show a supple waving action. She showed some, it's up to 2, we took 1/10.5. Slow motion. Not much for choreography, just 2 steps. Round off, your flick flack, and then there's your salto, and there's that strange man in the back. Body wave, she circles her arms, but there's really not much wave. I'm not going to argue with you if you said 2/10. Okay. Oops. Yeah. Okay, going on to number 4. Everybody's set. So it looks like we're going to be starting with the jump full turn, and then the sequence of jumps after that. All set. Here we go. Okay, just as a little editorial, this was the level 5 national compulsory demonstrator if you went to the national compulsories, and she was phenomenal. So look at her expression right now, ready to tell Mr. Tom, I didn't like having to do it like that. Okay, let's go over it. Jump full turn, no height. Maybe, well, guy could have slid a piece of paper under it. So I took a 10th nap. 05 for incomplete as well. And then the little wiggle, jiggle, wobble at the end. Split jump, 05 for posture on the entrance, 1/10 for height, and 2/10 for split. Straddle jump, 1/10 for height, 1/10 for posture, 1.5 for split. Then the full turn, incorrect leg position, not sure what it was, kind of sloppy. Then 1/10 for releve, and then her heel went down very early and didn't even complete it. So 2/10 for completion of the turn. It's worth 4. Needle kick, dynamics, knees, body alignment on the entrance, split. Wow. This is not like the category on beam where they only wanted it worth 2/10. So all of those are applicable deductions.
Choices on there. Kind of.
Oh, yeah. And this is the thing, you guys, just know that the gymnast has a choice. It doesn't have to be a needle kick. So if you read the text, it could be a forward kick. It could be a ring kick, an enclosed ring. That means you swing forward and then back to the ring position, sideward kick, arabesque, or backward kick. So they have all those choices. Okay. She picked the wrong one. Okay. Those of you that know me, I just always have to add some kind of comedy. All right, so let's show the full turn. We could get paper under it.
Not much.
Okay, then she's got not much split. Now remember, those have to be 180, everybody. Full turn, the leg position is all over the place. See that foot's not even around. And then flip. Dirty look.
Yeah.
Okay. She is the neatest kid in the whole wide world too, just so all of you know. Okay, clip number 5. So we're going to go, we've already done the kick. So now I think if I'm right, she's starting now into her work to the corner to get ready for the final acro stuff. So here we go. Okay, that should have been a red flag to some of you guys. Let's go and see. All right. She can perform 1 or 2 side chasses to get to the corner. They really want these kids working through the side positions of the chasse. So 1/10 each, performing a small part wrong. Then extended forward roll, a little bit of amplitude and body position on the roll. The front limber, the entrance has to be a jump with straight legs through to the handstand position. She bends them fully up, 3/10 for bent knees. Insufficient split on the front walkover. Cartwheel, no deduction. Oops, here's a big mistake. All right, we didn't catch this, and this has to be added in. So this is when I caught it, but then I didn't go back and catch it into this. Remember, I told you the first filming, she does 1 cartwheel, and then when I was reading things, I saw 2. Well, she skips a cartwheel here. So what you're going to have to do is, hopefully, I hope you caught it, is that would be deliberate omission of the second cartwheel, which would be 4/10, the value of the element, plus 5 more. So hopefully you caught the mistake from the presenters. So that should be another column in there. All right, that's our, oops, we didn't watch it slow. Forward chasses instead of sideward chasses. Then no attempted to have a little amplitude or not. There's supposed to be a pike into the handstand. front limber itself is pretty good. And you've got your split deduction of your front walkover. And then we have one cartwheel, and she should do two. I was going to talk to you briefly about the entrance, the compulsory entrance. As of November 2022, asks for a tuck entrance. So this is a different entrance that they are asking for. They want a pike entrance in their TOPS routines. Okay. Any questions? Oh, that's right. You can't ask any. So we're
Write
going
'em in.
to, yeah, you can ask later. We're going to go into the level, not level, the floor exercise for the 9 and 10-year-olds. There are a considerable number of changes in this in terms of the acrobatic sequences. You will see that, oh, we have a small typo. The full turn in asse,
Oh.
which should be passe. But there you go down. All right, you people have to stop laughing at us right now. Yes, be serious. We're going on. All those other things that we said at the entrance of the floor exercise are still the same. Now we're going to go through the sample routine of the things that we want to see in this routine. All right, let's go through some sequences and then we'll be done. Sequence number 1. This is where it's very important that you have good shorthand and can read your shorthand, because let's talk about what she did. She does a front, instead of the front handspring to 2 feet, she does a handspring step out. So that's, it's still in the family of front handspring, but she's changing it. So it's a 6/10 element. Then she's supposed to do a fly spring, which is the entrance is from 2 feet to 2 feet. Well, since she started out of a step out, then she does a front handspring with an entrance going through a kick instead of a punch. So now she also has another changing the major element because she never does the fly spring. Then she goes into the front salto. And in the front salto, you can do a tuck, a pike, or a stretch. You have an option there. So we have a deduction for height and a little hop backwards on the landing. The choreography into the corner to prepare for the next sequence of the switch leap, we didn't have a deduction. All right, so let's show that in slow. So you'll see this should land on 2 feet. It lands on 1. This should have taken off of 2 feet. It takes off on 1. I'm sorry, it said pike in there. She does a tuck, but you're allowed to do any of those positions. Cute choreography, moving into pose, nice style in preparation for the next sequence. Here's sequence 2. We're assuming that she's already done her choreography and now she's preparing for her switch leap into her dance little passage. Okay, there's some definite mistakes in there. Okay, the switch sleep. Now, I do want to point out that it says forward chasse. Let me see, make sure. In the text, it says for number 3, forward chasse, steps, or run. So don't get bogged down with the entrance into the switch leap. That is a forward chasse, or they can simply run. They don't have to do a forward chasse. So if you see that they run into the switch leap, you wouldn't be saying, oh, she omitted the forward chasse, because they have a choice. And if you read the text, it says that. Then we have the tour jeté. The footwork on the entrance going into it, it's up to 3/10 in execution. You just put an F on your paper. You don't take 3/10 here. Then failure to show squared hips on the takeoff, 1/10 height, 1/10 split, 0.5 for direction of the split. It's going crooked. And then she doesn't land on 2 feet. She lands on 1 foot and steps back into a lunge. She should have landed on 2 feet. So failure to close the feet on landing 1/10. See, if you looked at, there was a little footwork, beautiful switch leap, footwork error going there again, footwork error going in there, and there's the direction and landing on 1 foot. Okay. Sequence 3. Okay. She was also one of our national compulsory demonstrators. Okay. Well, all she did was walk backwards. That's with our new code of points optional rules too. We know that you're not supposed to do just backward steps without anything moving besides just walking. So you'd put a C on your paper. The roundoff didn't have a deduction. The whip salto, she's supposed to go whip salto into a stretch salto and then the body wave sequence, 1/10 for body position on the whip salto, and it should be accelerating. So she needs to move that roundoff into scoop position a little bit more and then get those arms moving and accelerate the whip salto. Now here she just isn't ready for it yet, I guess. So she deliberately omits it and leaves it out. She's not ready to do it. So she loses the 6/10 for the element value and 5/10 for, in addition to that. The forward body wave, 0.5 for failure to show supple waving action. Let's watch that in slow. Now choreography. Her feet were placed behind her, and that's what made the whip go high, but we don't have a deduction for foot placement on the ending of the roundoff. We just judge the result of what her technique is. The coaches would want the technique for her to turn over the roundoff more, but there's not a deduction for a judge, a tool for a judge to say failure to turn over the roundoff, but the judge will use what they see and it will create a result in the whip salto for the error in the roundoff of using this, not scooping. Okay, let's go on to sequence 4. So we've already done the salto stretch, we've done the body wave, so now we're starting with the jump full turn. Well, she's happy with herself. I'm not. Oopsie. Okay, let's go through it. So jump full turn, height and wobble. Then I hope you caught this. She does a split jump, straddle jump. She does a straddle jump, split jump. Now they're beautiful jumps. A little bit of height on the straddle jump, and she didn't close her feet, but they're in the reverse order. So I hope you caught that. Full turn, incorrect leg position. Well, she had some options in the full turn. She could do a passe, horizontal, a standing split. and she chose to do none of the three. So she lost a deduction for leg position, releve not quite high enough, a little bit incomplete, the needle kick, 0.5 for height, 0.5 for posture. Wait a minute. Did she do a needle or did she do a ring? Huh?
Let's watch her again.
Well, we'll see it in slow motion because I'm like upper posture posture of the upper back on a needle kick doesn't make sense. I might have messed up there. So let's watch again and see if she does. We're going to see it in slow motion. I bet it's a ring. Hopefully you agree with our deduction on height. And a little bit incomplete and a little wiggly. Beautiful amplitude, feet are together, could have been a little higher, then land with their feet. She's not on the beam, they should be closed. Here's her full turn in coupe position. Done pretty nice. Well, a little, it's kind of between passe and coupe. We'll call it capace. Then she did do a ring. I labeled it wrong. And then that back position there. All right, everybody, here's your last sequence coming up. So now she will have already done her kick. And now we're going to do our transition to the corner where we should do our last tumbling run. Well, and unfortunately, we might see some of that. So she doesn't do the side chasses again. She does forward chasses. So there's changing a small part. She has her feet apart on the round off. Flick flack's pretty good, but then layout with a full twist. She doesn't do a full twist. She just does a layout. So that deduction is 6/10 plus 5. The value of the element plus 5. The gymnast performs a salto stretch without a twist. So let's see that again in slow motion. Okay, I just want to apologize for the mess ups that we have, you know, when you're creating these things. And we were pushing to get this out there because we know some of you need to take this as fast as possible. So again, but a disclaimer is you're supposed to go by the text.
Read the text
And make sure you're doing that. And even Bozo 1 and Beauty 2 can make some errors, and that's we planned all that.
Oh yeah, we
so
did those
that
on
you would
purpose.
know that you would have to go to the text to see that. Linda's got one other thing to say
Yes.
about questions.
So we know there's going to be questions about the TOPS program, and R&P will update the apparatus and other things like that, and qualifying how you do all that. But as judges go, you may have questions and coaches may also. So we're working with the office to have an email link that will be on the website that you will be able to go to if you have questions concerning the routines or whatever, and then they'll filter it to whoever needs to answer it. So good luck. Hope you enjoyed. And we can't wait to see all those kids do these.
Yes. One final thank you to those athletes and those coaches that helped us out to prepare this presentation for you. Thank you.
Okay.